Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for participating in our session today. My name is Hilbrand Rustema. I'm the Managing Director of Noventum, and I will facilitate the discussion today. And that's in preparation for the upcoming Service Business Forum that will be on the 5th and 6th of June in Amsterdam. And we will start a conversation with our online community about this topic, how to make digital service transformations more successful. The reason that we have chosen this topic is, well, first of all, it was the advisory board of the Service Business Forum that gave us the topic. But the research that we have done here gave us some pretty striking statistic. It's 70% of all, let's call it, digitally enabled service business transformations, they fail to meet the expectations. Now that's quite a striking statistics, and that makes us really think what will be the answer to the question, why is it so hard to get these transformations right? So far, our research is giving us some typical reasons for from both a business perspective and also from an IT perspective. So the first, let's say from a business perspective, you see that there is often organizational resistance to large change initiatives. There is often a lack of a clear strategy for the service business. There are talent shortages and skill gaps. There is a lack of understanding often about what is the best practice in the service business. There's a lack of business objectives and measurement of the ROI. And then implementing the old way in a new digital platform is often done, and that's not really bringing results. So the list goes on from the business perspective, more from the technology or IT perspective. So far, we discovered that, let's say, the solutions that are being delivered, the IT solutions, they're often not as expected by the business. There is then a poor user adoption of new solutions. There's also shortages of skilled professionals in areas like AI, IoT, cybersecurity, data analytics, and software integration. There are lots of data and integration challenges, and there is quite a few dependencies that are caused by legacy systems. So this Ask Me Anything session is an inspiration for our discussion further in the Service Business Forum on the 5th and 6th of June. And we will start here hearing about some of the new innovations from experts in digital service transformations. And after that, we will open up the discussion and take your questions. So you can start asking any questions that you have already in the chat. And my colleague Anik, she will be monitoring the questions. And when we come to the Q&A sessions at the end, we will ask our panel of experts. So today I would like to introduce one by one the service transformation experts from our partners. The first one is Erik Veldkamp. He is a partner at HSO, and HSO are implementation experts for Microsoft solutions. And I understood, Erik, you brought a backup. His name is Frank Seilstra, who is an agentic AI expert, but he remains in the back, let's say, hidden, but he's there to answer any technical complex questions about AI. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Fabienne Solier. Fabienne is Senior Manager Expert Services at Synchron. Synchron is specialized in service lifecycle solutions such as value-based pricing contracts, parts inventory management solutions, and more of these service business-focused solutions. And then we have Robert Cole. Robert is a solution architect at Equipe. They are experts at implementing IFS solutions in the area of service. So good afternoon, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Eric. You have come up with an innovation that makes digital service transformations more successful by using agentic AI in service. So can you tell us what it is and how will it improve transformation success?
Yes, thanks, Hilbrand, for the opportunity to join this great community and share some thoughts and perspectives on this topic of failure in digital transformations. I think looking back at the reasons for failure, you just listed, Hilbrand, the majority is really related to humans. Um, Humans not creating the right budgets, humans not creating the right expectations. You also mentioned technology, which might fail. And based on that, maybe the main reason is that maybe data is a very critical element in why things fail or projects fail. Um, would you then maybe be innovative in killing the human element completely? Well, that's not the goal, of course, of this exercise, because in the end, I think real customer satisfaction is given by the human factor. What we see is to avoid failures is that, of course, besides having a proper implementation methodology, we see opportunity for what indeed is called agentic AI. Of course, AI it might be well, has heard of it and is the next big thing, let's say, in digital transformation overall, but also in service. Um, and there is what we see two elements. Everybody knows AI from the chatbots. ChatGPT was introduced, adopted the most users ever um, online, and that is just a basic concept of asking things, retrieve information, and get get to be better prepared for your work. For instance, go to a for a service work order, ask a chatbot, what can it do? What do I need to know from the history of this object or the service contract or this customer? Those kind of things can really help do your work better. But that's just the basics of applying AI in field service. The next step is agentic, and if you look at agentic, where a chatbot or I'm a Microsoft partner, so I have to make some advertisement of Microsoft maybe, but that's called Copilot, and I'm sure everybody has heard of that. Copilot is now the new user interface of AI. It is your personal assistant. In the case of a service engineer or a service planner, it is made for you on an individual level. If you look at the business process, and that is where you want to optimize and reduce the failures, there you can use AI in a business process. And that is where the word agentic AI comes in, because agentic AI is made to optimize the business process. Of course, if there is a business process which is not perfect, you want to avoid optimizing that business process, but stay a wrong business process. So you need to have a look at your business process, see where there is failures, and then get those failures out, and then optimize it with agentic AI. And agentic AI is then really autonomous, allowing the process to be autonomous executed by AI. That's not something you do overnight. If you start from the human first interface towards the agentic AI interface first, there's a couple of steps to be taken in between. And that is where the innovation comes in, to eliminate the human element of making errors. We are now working on a customer case it's in an inspection environment, and 25% of the work orders created have some failures, and it's basically in the data, and that is what you want to get out of the elements before you want to apply agentic AI to, for instance, automatically create a work order based on a case submitted by the customer of the inspection company. Yeah, and that is AI, agentic AI applied into field service process, but it only can walk, I always say, on two legs. One is data. I already mentioned that a couple of times. The data have to be right, because there is a saying, of course, that bad data in is also delivering bad data out. But there's people think that applying AI makes that the data is becoming better. And there's a saying, garbage in, garbage out will then become garbage in, gospel out, because it has gone through AI. And that is, of course, not the case. You have to make sure that the data is correct before you can apply AI to it. That's the first leg. And the second leg is security. Given this is implemented in a business process and in a business environment, you want to make sure that security is done right and the right people have access to that business process, even if that people is not a person but a agent doing things for you. And that is where the innovation comes in, which we can apply to field service processes.
Okay, well, fantastic, Eric. I think it was a very short and crisp explanation. Let's go to Fabien Solier from Synchron. So you have a lot of experience, Fabien, and particularly what you mentioned as an innovation is bringing agility into SaaS deployments, and especially in complex service environments. So can you explain how that improves the chances of transformation success?
Yes, thank you very much, Hilbrand. Yes. At first, SAS and Agile seem like an odd fit. Agile was conceived around product development, software development, whereas SAS implementation requires an existing software. Nevertheless, there are a lot of opportunities for companies to include some agility into their SAS implementation and deployment. What we see right now is that traditional methodology with long planning phases become a liability. So traditionally, software implementation for SAS was dictated by long planning phase, where you would specify, you would create requirements, and then you would try to implement them, leading to very long lead time. And right now in the current world, and I think we can all observe that on a daily basis, things change very fast, very, very fast on a daily basis. So your organization changes, your context changes, your client changes, your requirement changes. So these long plans lead to missed opportunities, and these rigid phases, planning phases that we usually typically see in SAS implementation lead to missed opportunities. So the solution here is to bring in more agility. And by embracing the agile principle, then companies, they can navigate this complexity in a more pragmatic way. And this iterative development that is encouraged and which is the basis of the agile methodology creates an environment which allows companies and organizations to tackle this complexity and break down this large chunk of project implementations and phases in smaller, more digestible chunks, which allow companies to get faster to value, to reduce the risk of implementation. Typical example here, and Synchron has been very active in that field, are automotive suppliers. So besides the sheer size of these companies, they also have a very, very demanding processes. The organization are complex, and most of the time the company cultures make resistance to change a really a difficulty. So there are several values, several principles from the Agile Manifesto. And I think the most important one is responding to changes instead of following a plan. So I already alluded to the fact that with traditional phases, you have long phases where people start interacting together and they have an idea of how the solution would look like. And by not following a plan and smaller chunks of work, the agility that you bring by following the agile manifesto and principles makes it much easier for you to manage this complexity. So you have iterative developments and you have iterative deliveries of software. So instead of spending times on trying to figure out what should be the best solution, you start with a rough idea that you refine together with your client. And I think that's the key element here, is that you work together as a team with your client by just taking into account what you learn in every stage of these iterations. So you would typically start discussing with the client, delivering parts of your platform. So you need to think in smaller chunks. And once you have delivered that, then you go into unit testing. So you would show the client what you just configured. You wouldn't wait 6 months for the whole set of specification that you defined half a year ago to be configured and ready for the client to test, because things might change. And the idea that you had 6 months ago, well, actually, it might not be the best idea right now. So you start by engaging and showing the platform to the client, and that brings a lot of benefits. So the first one, as I mentioned, is you are able to adapt much faster to changes. So what you thought would be a great idea 6 months ago is not yet maybe a good idea, but you have another one, which might be dictated by the context. Then you can also tackle change management. I alluded to that previously. Resistance to change is really a big challenge. If you deliver in smaller chunks, then you're able to expose your client to the software much more often. And that creates already a willingness to change, to engage. You also engage the client into building the application with you, into configuring the application with you. So this is really a benefit for you as a company and for you as a client, because you can quickly see what you get and you can then adjust your requirements or your software to go one way or the other that might be more productive or more adapted to the solution or to the challenges that your company is facing. So I would say that for me, the most important aspect here of marrying these two SAS implementation in an agile methodology is the fact that while it remains a challenge because these two are not really made to work together, there is a lot to gain from companies to implement their software as a services in a more agile manner. That means leaving the old world of long planning. That means being able to embrace the agility, making sure that the contracting also encompasses this value and gives you the flexibility to take a bit more time or less time or readjust as you go. And I think this is really an area where there is a lot to gain, because digital transformation is no longer questions. You need to change. The fast eats the slow right now. And it's no longer the bigger that eat the small. So you really need to move on and implement this platform and these technologies. And well, the better you implement them, the better you are to face your competition, grow, and adjust to the challenges of the new economy.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very good explanation, Fabian. So it's agility in SaaS. That's the key recommendation here. Right. So next one is Robert Kool from Equipe, and you will speak about this critical element, data. It was already mentioned by Eric as well, which is often the success of maybe the foundation of success for any good service transformation. And as we've heard, it's not always the solution or the technology itself, but it's the lack of data quality, the structure, the integration. So what is your recommendation on how to improve digital transformations?
Yes, well, thanks, Hilbrand, for introducing and this opportunity to be in the panel. Yes, well, as mentioned indeed, but by Fabian and also with Eric, data is key. And on the other hand, you need to implement this on an agile way. That is also coming back in my story, and then to answer your question on it. Yeah, based on the experience I have and the customers I worked for, and most customers I work for are really globally oriented customers. So big customers with a lot of challenges of IT and the business, and they need to talk to each other. And the IT is in a different country than the business is operating. So a lot of communication issues we see there. So that is to change it to go to a digitalized solution. Yeah, that is what I see. Communication is key. But what I see normally is that the business they go to a lot of have a lot of discussions with competitors, with their customers, and they hear a lot of things happening within the service industry. And they hear about agentic AI, they hear about IoT, they hear about a lot of nice innovations, and they hear it and they say that's what we need. But they most of the time they don't have really clear what the requirements are, and they come to the IT department. That's what we need, and IT. Most of the time, the IT can arrange it. We can make sure the AI is implemented. Copilot is implemented at several customers. And okay, what's next? And do we really meet our requirements on it? So business and IT, business wants it, but have not a clue what, and IT delivers what they think they want, and then we are basically back to the beginning. So to get there is okay. First of all, what do we really want and what do we really need, and do we have the data to monitor that? So requirements about the master data, what is the install base, and do we have all the information of the install base, and what do we want to measure? How are we going to measure it? How often are we measuring it? And based on that, what can we do? So working as Fabian mentioned in an agile way is not going to directly to your main goal at the end to have a predictive or maybe even a proactive maintenance plan set for the assets of your customer, but go step by step to that one. So first of all, are you handling your reactive maintenance correctly? And maybe we can already set kind of a planned maintenance. What we most of the time also do with our car, it's either every year or every 20,000 kilometers. If you do that, then you already have good assets and you already have a good performance of your assets based on the experience we have. And based on the information you gather based on that maintenance plan, you can make it more complex and say, okay, I don't want to do it every six months or every 20,000 kilometers, but I want to do it when a certain asset is operating differently. But yeah, how to measure that? Yeah, then you need to monitor that asset constantly. So that have an impact on the installed base. It has an impact on way of working. It has a lot of complexity with it. So bringing this forward, still, I want to advise, first of all, make your asset performance work as a basic. So we don't want to have that many corrective orders. So just plan something in, and based on the experience you get, based on the information you get back from the maintenance jobs, the service jobs you execute, you can make it more complex and you get more information, and the data will be sufficient. So to get to your proactive predictive maintenance, start with a good basis. That is That's what I want to advise in this sense.
Getting your data basics in order. That's the starting point, kind of.
That's the starting point. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Well, thanks a lot, Robert. Yeah, I agree with you that sort of quality and quantity of available data is often overlooked, and maybe there are some very high expectations also with companies on what you can do. So finally, maybe I can add my 2 cents here on how to improve digital service transformations, mainly from the business perspective and maybe the change management perspective. So what I notice in my day job, let's say as a management consultant working with service organizations, is that, and I say this with all respect, companies very often, they believe that they are very unique in how they operate their service business. And that usually results in that they want to stick to their old ways of working when implementing completely new digital solutions. Now, the problem is that this may not be the best practice, and it therefore may not be supported by digital solutions that are often already set up to work with, let's say, to provide standard functionality that is based on best practices. So this may end up in a misery when implementers use, let's call them bad practices, and implement service operating models as it was, like not realizing major improvements. So what I would like to give as an innovation here is let's question this idea of that you are very unique, and let's use service industry standards and benchmark your business to prioritize what are your improvement opportunities. Then define before you start, define a good service business strategy, and then design, let's call it a best-in-class service operating model that fits with standard out-of-the-box functionality that you now find nowadays in many of the available service solutions, so that you can then build and implement the solutions. If you do that in an agile way, we heard that that's a great recommendation, that you can use now agentic AI rather than doing big bang waterfall transformations, but build and implement something only after you have redefined your operating model to follow best in class. And then doing this proactively, so looking constantly at the changes, first of all, in customer service needs that may drive new services, look at the technology and the market trends, and then proactively do pilots more on a small scale or do iterations. And then once it works, you can scale that once it has proven to work. Yeah? So this is, I would say, the first conclusion of this round by our panel that has presented some new innovations that would help to improve the success of digital service transformations. So we will now try to answer some of the questions that we received. First of all, we received questions from LinkedIn, and we have seen some questions coming in through the chat. So perhaps, Annick, maybe you can fire on the questions engine, and I'll try to help, for as far as I know, our partners who may be the right one to answer the question, although they're all very competent, of course. What is the first question, Annick?
The first question is how to manage companies' expectations if the business wants more than the available data and the quality of data and quantity can provide.
I think that's an excellent question. Robert, do you have, because you're the guy that came up with the data, do you have any idea how to manage these super high expectations?
Well, that is indeed what you make it, a super high expectation. That is indeed the main issue we have, because they have heard about some innovation and they think hey, that's nice, that's what I want. But first of all, the questions I give back is what are the real requirements you want to achieve? So first, make the high expectations a little bit less high, and tell me. But in the Netherlands, we sometimes spoke about Jip and Janneke taal, so the really easy language to explain. Try to explain it in an easy language so that everybody can understand what you really want. And most of the time we need to help them with that, because that's the business is talking in their own business language. So that is always a challenge, but most important one is to fetch the real requirement of it. And then next of all that, if you have it and they say, well, in a still high expectation, we want to have our good asset performance based on proactive maintenance. So we only do the maintenance when it's really needed in time. Then the next question, okay, but the data you have is not sufficient to do so. So we need to change something on that matter. It is not a big issue, but be aware we cannot implement this what you really want at once. So be really clear what they can expect from this change.
Yeah, so there's a kind of a growth path that you have to show in growing the quality and maybe the quantity of data before you can really achieve the targeted business result, let's say. Yeah.
Indeed. And I think that it also comes back to the story of Fabian, is to work this out in an agile way. So this is the main goal at the end, but how to reach it. And what Fabian really important stated, maybe that main goal, which you want to achieve in 2-3 years time from now, can change. So be aware of that, and also the innovations change in that period. So step by step.
Okay, all right, very good. Nice that you complement each other's innovations. What is the next question, Aniek, that you would like to propose?
Yeah, so the next question is, how will agentic AI improve the experience for customers, but also for employees internally?
Fantastic question, Erik. That one is for you.
Yeah, if the prerequisites are fulfilled, so the data is correct and the security is arranged, the chance that a agent is making mistakes is lower than a human being. So let's say it should avoid errors in the process and that's kind of things. Ultimately, I said in my piece that in the end, also the human factor is really making sure that there's customer satisfaction. So we should not eliminate the human interaction with a customer. So a field service engineer, and that is one of the things why I like being in the world of field service. You cannot offshore or nearshore your field service work. It's always done where the asset is. And that means there is a human needed. But the human who is executing it is also coming to you better prepared with the right spare parts, etc., to fix the problem. So, and that is helping increasing the customer satisfaction and the employee satisfaction, of course, because nothing is so frustrating if an engineer is on site fixing things and he doesn't have the right spare parts, he or she doesn't have the right spare parts, or other elements. It's lacking documentation or is not aware of the history of what happened on that asset before. And that is how agentic AI can help increase customer and employee satisfaction.
Can I add one more question to this, Erik, that's more from myself? Like, are we all in the future going to work with like a type of a ChatGPT interface, or is that going to change a lot with this agentic AI?
It's good that you bring it up, Hilbrand, because the answer to this is yes. I think with the introduction of AI and agentic AI, it is reimagining any business application or any application, if you want, at its core. I mean, if you look at the way offices and desks are now the way we work now. So we still sit behind the screen. We open a application and we do our things, which is more or less in technical terms forms over data. Yeah, that is going to change massively. I already mentioned in my introduction that Copilot is the user interface of AI. Well, think of Copilot being your user interface and nothing else.
Yeah. So I can talk simply. And yeah.
You could talk
okay.
indeed, and that is really reimagining business applications and business processes at its core with the introduction of AI.
Wow, fantastic. I mean, I can talk faster than I can type, so let's see how that works. All right, Annick, you have another question for the panel.
Yes, from the audience. So if you were advising a company starting their transformation journey today, what would you tell them to prioritize first?
Wow, that's a good one. Fabian, what
Yeah.
would you say?
That's a very broad topic, but the first thing that comes to mind, and that relates to what I explained before, um, the mindset. The mindset is key here. I would send everyone to do a Scrum Master certification. This is really an eye opener for a lot of people, especially people that have been long in the business. It gives you beyond the tools, the principles, and the values of the Agile Manifesto. It allows you to develop another mindset. And transformation is huge. Like, I mean, the word itself, it's like you need to transform, you need to evolve. The companies are complex, the context is ever changing. You might get a new CEO, you might have tariffs entering into the picture, which you didn't have on your compass like 2 months before. So if you have this mindset of, and at its core, it's a lot of pragmatism. I think that would be the first step for me, because it gives you the tool to be successful. So it's not like, hey, start with this and then you will be successful. It equips you with the tool set that you need to navigate the changes, because there will be changes. So you could start with a 5 days workshop with top executive to pan out the strategy. We will anyway probably do, but if you want to start transforming, you also need to change the way people think. You need to start in the head, and this is where that happens. So changes start with individuals. So at the end of the day, I mean, developing or deploying a software, you can do that, right? But there are a lot of people involved in that change, and in a transformation that's huge. So if you get the right mindset, you will be equipped to address and solve the challenges that are ahead of you, because you know that they will come. And one of the principles is also to plan the unplanned. There are unknowns, and you know they are here. You know that you will not know what will happen, but you can provision that. And by having the right mindset, you can instill that. And really, from my experience, I have been working with a team with a large automotive manufacturer in Germany, and this mindset is what set them apart from any other client I've ever seen until now in the past 20 years. They really embraced the agility, the principles, and the pragmatism, and we bond as a team. So yes, we had challenges. There are bumps on the road. There will always be, but because we've um, integrated this way of working, we're able to circumvent them and to be successful. So I'll get back to what I said at the beginning after this long explanation. Mindset. Send everyone to an agile training. I think that's well worth it.
Okay, well, very, very, very good answer. I think I'm glad you didn't say let's start with value-based pricing. Right, Annick, do you have another question for us?
Yes. So this one is on AI again. So how is agentic AI going to help to make processes less rigid? And can it also help to optimize workflows more dynamically?
Eric.
Another great question indeed. Yeah, so if implementing agentic AI in a bad process doesn't help. So you have to look at is the process right and is the process optimal before applying agentic AI into it. That is, I think, most important. So, and then afterwards you can, think of multiple agents even to make the process work better and optimize workflows. And that is also well, I want to get back to what my other colleagues said about make sure your foundation and do it step by step. Because a scenario where you have multiple agents executing on a process is maybe the ultimate scenario, where you should start step by step and maybe start with one agent first doing work order creation, another agent doing maybe credit checks before you even do the work order planning, those kind of things. And that is where you can optimize. But there is another element I didn't mention about agents, which is the learning element of it. So if you train your models or your agents, they can also become better. And that is where it can help improving your process.
Okay, right. This is a new world for us. So we look forward to seeing it in action, of course, during the Service Business Forum when you're gonna do a whole workshop about it. But very interesting. Thanks for the answer, Erik. Let's see, is there any other question, Annick?
Yes, I just received another one. So what are the strategical factors that affect or accelerate service digitalization? Think about, like, is it the size of a company or the investment made in the data lake, or are there specific industries that seem to move faster? Could you say anything about that?
Should I give that a try? Is that okay? We obviously look at things from a business point of view. We do a lot of research in the service industry. What I believe is there's a couple of things which kind of have been mentioned a bit. One is the driver is what's the level of maturity in a service organization. So if you are at the moment still a very reactive organization, maybe not have had. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I had a complete blackout of screens here.
Yes, we can. Yes, you're still on screen and can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. I cannot see anything anymore, so my screens and PC went completely black, but if you can hear me and see me. So what I said is the maturity level is a starting point. If you're very reactive and you do not have a lot of the basic service processes in order, it's very difficult to take a next step because you do not have the data, you do not have the process, you do not have the skills. So you need to build on every maturity level. So the next level is typically becoming more preventive, doing SLAs, doing full service contracts. Then the next step may be predictive. You connect your equipment, you start to monitor real time, and eventually proactive. And proactive means you're going to be proactively approaching your customers, understanding their needs often better than they do themselves. And I think that's a very important driver of, let's say, innovations, digitalization. The more companies have in place and the better their level of digitalization is, the more they can do. Another one I would say is understanding customer needs and reacting on that and being also proactive. on addressing customer needs. And perhaps a third one is very often the level of competition. So I always say it's like popcorn. If in one industry, one service organization pops up as the leader, the rest has no other chance or no other possibility than to follow. Being completely in the black here, Annick, maybe you can help us with next question.
Yes. So next question, like, what is the recommended approach to improve the quality of data?
So I think that would be a question for Robert again.
Yes. Yeah. So as mentioned, so the data. First, we need to have a basis on the installed base, and based on some history, you get your asset performance, and you can measure it. And then you have at least already something. And I always prefer to have small good data than a lot of garbage data. So my recommendation would be to extend it step by step. But also in this case, if we talk about data, we have basic data, master data, transactional data, historical data, all kind of data. So that is also within implementations, the basic data we need to set. I think that should be started first. How are we want to report? What are the KPIs we want to achieve? And most of the time, that is related to the basic data. And how I see to basic data, well, we have an equipment, we have an asset. The asset I see as a master data object, and the asset type I see as a basic data. And most of the time, you're not really going to measure one single asset to measure the full asset performance, but you want to more monitor on the basic data connected to the assets. So that's the start point. How do we want to measure? What do we want to report on? What are my KPIs to set basic data correct? And then from there, set your master data correct, and make sure that we measure the correct things and build up your history, and to extend that, in that sense, your data quality.
Okay, very, very good. Robert, let's go to the next question then, Annick.
Yes. So the next one that's more related to agile. So we talk about requirements, etc. But what as a minimum do you need to design upfront before you start to configure basically a SaaS solution? Like, do you need to design a to-be process before you start, or is that something you do during the journey?
Yeah, to-be process. I think you need to have, going back to the picture I used before, you might have a rough idea of where you want to land. And when you use the agile methodology, you think in product increment. So you will have a product vision, and instead of designing to-be processes, I would recommend just detailing a product vision and starting to map out the different product increments as you want to have them. It could be linked to processes, but again, at whichever stage you find yourself, being the product vision, the increments, or even the processes, if you go at that level, and keep in mind it will require time and a lot of effort, and you don't want to overdo that step. You need to keep in mind that you will need to adapt to changes. So whatever you think your to-be process now should be, maybe it's perfect and maybe it's going to make sense next year and for the next decade. But in most cases, you will learn as you go, because when you implement a platform, then you all of a sudden think about, okay, the way Synchron does its pricing is actually a bit different from how we process now. So if you embrace this change, and I'm going back to what Hilbrand said before, companies are specific, but if you're trying to embrace this change, maybe your to-be process is not so much relevant because you're going to change. You're going to embrace this platform and you're going to do your pricing differently. You're going to do your parts planning differently. When you want to implement an SAS platform, you usually went through a long sales cycle and you have a good reason for having selected that platform. So at that point, you need to make the most out of it. So if I go back to the original question of to-be processes, yes, you might have an idea, but don't be too much fixated about this, because at the end of the day, you will see that the interplay between what you have in mind, what the software is providing you as a solution, you need to bridge that gap. You need to bridge the gap between the existing processes and the existing software, and it requires a flexibility on both sides. So organization needs to change, they need to adapt, and they need to think again about the to-be processes. And companies, even if we are a software vendor and the platform is there already, you need to be able to adapt to client requirements that are really, really important for them. And you need also to guide them through this change management and these processes of getting acquainted to the software. So to summarize, yeah, not bad to design to-be processes, but don't overdo it and focus more on what your vendor is bringing you in terms of solution and see how we can make that work, instead of trying to stay within your boundaries and what you know. This is how you grow and evolve.
Okay, very good. That obviously assumes, Fabienne, that the vendor comes with a best-in-class solution. Yeah. So the choice of vendor is very important. Okay,
Exactly.
good. Maybe another question, Annick, and I think we are almost, time is getting close, but
Yeah.
maybe there's another
Yes.
one.
So there's another question more around AI. So you gave the example of automating the request intake, but can agentic AI also help service organizations to move from being reactive to a proactive service organization?
Yes and no. It is in order to become to the highest level of the service growth model that Noventum is also preaching, is that it's not only the process or the application that makes it work. In order to, for instance, have all the data of your asset, it must be IoT connected, and measuring the right things on that asset to allow you to change your business model and become more predictive and preventive in your maintenance sequence. What is important there, and where AI can help, and that is also coming back to the data question probably, is that, I mean, if all organizations we get into, they have applications, or at least 10 or more applications used in the service department. Some are on-prem, some are in the cloud, some are I don't know where. And if you want to make use of all that data, you cannot get all that data into a new application. That is simply impossible. And that is why we have good experience with, before implementing any application, is make sure that there's a data platform where you can leverage all the data from these various applications and work from there. If that in combination with censored assets can help you realize the ultimate level of predictive preventive maintenance schedules.
Right. Okay. Very good. On that note, I think that you've, in a very short time, you guys have asked good questions. So first of all, I would like to thank the audience for taking the time and asking all these questions. And then, of course, for the panel here of experts. We do not have to completely say goodbye to you, because on the 5th and 6th of June, the people have the chance to meet you in person and participate in a couple of workshops that where you will be active, and you will be talking about a lot more in depth about these yeah, all the questions that we have about how to make these digital service transformations more successful. What people can do if they want to participate is that you can go to the website, which is www and then servicebusinessforum.com, and you can let's say join there. So it's an in-person event in Amsterdam. It's going to be an afternoon session, an evening program where we'd have a nice dinner somewhere, of course, in Amsterdam, and then a morning program. And we would have a couple of very interesting speakers. We will start off with presenting our latest research. Then we will have, as one of the speakers will be a service director from Jung Heinrich that has very recently experienced an implementation, and he has some interesting, let's say, lessons learned to share. And secondly, a person from Abbott Laboratories, the analytics company, or the diagnostics company, I have to say, in healthcare. They have been working already for many years on predictive maintenance, and this is somebody coming right from the field, right from really doing it, and talking about his lessons learned over a longer period, number of years. And we'll talk about what he was able to achieve and what not, and which are the, let's say, pitfalls to avoid and best practices to follow. The Service Business Forum is always very interactive, so there's not a lot of PowerPoint present there, but there's a lot of experience sharing, talking to the people that have really done it, and asking freely to your peers, other service leaders typically, and the occasional CIO, to what is their experience, and what you can learn from them. In the end, we will also share all the best practices that we developed during those days, that we document, and we make it available to all the participants. So please join if you can. You would see the same faces again, but then live. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for participating, and goodbye for now. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't